Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. This morning we are very thankful that Yah has been kind to us in that he took us through the busy week and we're here at another blessed day. Thank him. Whenever we speak of a weapon of mass destruction, invariably we're dealing with a nuclear, radiological, chemical, biological, or some other device which is intended to harm a mass of people. That's what we mean when we talk about a weapon of mass destruction. There in the Department of Homeland Security is ever diligent in its work to prevent terrorists and other threats using such weapons to arm its citizens. But I asked myself the question, who is the one who protects the church from doctrinal terrorists? It seemed to me that the church faces an ever-increasing danger from doctrinal terrorists. And the rogue priests, dissident bishops, and apostate pastors, many of which are onto this general movement we call the gospel, weapons of facts destruction. So our topic today, the subject matter is weapons of facts destruction, meaning those who are supposed to be the custodian of the word are the ones rejecting and teaching others to do the same and have become apostate to the truth. So this morning we want to look at these prophets, these pastors, these bishops, and examine them not by our own feelings, but by way of the word. That's what we want to do. Weapons of facts destruction. So in that, I'm going to ask you to join me in the book Bamidbar, chapter 11. That's the book of Numbers. And we will begin at verse 14. This here is dealing with Moshe or Moses, who was called to be the deliverer and to mediate the process through which the people of Israel could reach out at a mutual understanding of Yahweh. And so Moses here in verse 14 saying, I am unable to bear all these people alone because the burden is too heavy for me. And if you are doing this to me, Moses says, kill me, please kill me, if I have found favor in your eyes, and let me not see my evil. Now, what we hear here is a frustrated man who is leading a people, almost 3 million people, and they're giving him a hard time, stubborn. They will not listen to what he's saying, and he's getting dictation directly from Yah. And he's telling them what Yah says, and the people are not listening. And it reminds me very much of the times in which we live now, because people are just not listening to the word. They give their opinion, and that's sufficient. So Moses here is saying, kill me. Is that enough? Then Yahweh said to Moshe, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of appointment, and let them stand there with you, and I shall come down and speak with you there, and shall take of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them, and they shall bear the burdens of the people with you, so that you do not bear it yourself alone. Moses was responsible for teaching, for judging, and doing all that needs to be done to the children of Israel. And the burden was such that he needed help. You know, sometimes you need help and you cry out to people and they are busy in their worldly cares that they don't have time to commit themselves to the work, which is the greatest of all works. And so Moses here gets frustrated with the people and asks Yah to take him away. Now Yah says, all right, bring me 70 elders and the Spirit. And I want to remind you that the church or the Holy Spirit did not come firstly in Acts chapter 2. It says Moses had the Spirit. Moses had the Ruach even then. And he was going to take that Spirit that is on Moses and put it on 70 of the elders. And the word continues that the people were more concerned about what they're going to eat. No different than today. They want meat. And Yah says, if you would only prioritize what I've given you to do, you would be in a better condition. But therefore you ask for meat, and I'm going to let you eat it, and it will come through your nostrils. And it did. And so the word says in verse 25, and Yahweh came down in the cloud and spoke with him and took of the Spirit that was upon him and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it came to be when the Spirit rested upon them that they prophesied, but did not continue. I want to use this passage to define what a prophet means. Often we say a prophet is one who foretells the future. And that's true sometimes, but not always. But in this context here, and here we see that what Yah was going to do, he was going to put the Spirit on the 70 elders, that they would do exactly what Moses was doing. What was Moses doing? Moses was speaking the word of Yah. So a prophet is not only one who foretells, but one who tells forth. One who speaks intelligently and speak the inspired word, and he does so with authority. What am I saying? A prophet is one who speaks the inspired word of Yah, and he does so with authority. So when you read the word of Yah, you are speaking the inspired word, and you must do so with authority. Whose authority? Authority of Yah. And so these ministers, these priests, these bishops, these weapons of facts destruction, many of them are degreed, but they're not decreed by Yah. Often you go to assemblies, and in their introduction, people will read out long resumes of how many degrees they have and the universities that they matriculated from. And so, because they are decreed and they rely upon their degree, many of them are not decreed, even as Moses was. Moses was decreed to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. You see, we're dealing this morning with false prophets and false teachers. And you must be able to identify them, because if they speak not according to the word, there is no truth in them. And the people, the men here, once the Spirit was up on them, they began to speak even as Moses spoke. They prophesied, the word said. And in verse 27, we read, and the young man ran and informed Moshe and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Yehoshua, son of Nun, Moshe's assistant from his youth, answered and said, Moshe, my master, forbid them. Stop them from prophesying. Moses is really saying, what? Then Moses said to him, are you jealous for my sake, or that all the people of Yahweh were prophets? That Yahweh would put his spirit on them, and Moshe returned to the camp, both he and the elders of Israel. The Spirit came up on the people, and they prophesied. They were now speaking the inspired word, and they were doing it with authority. And in a sense, what I'm doing here this morning, I am prophesying. I am speaking the word here that was given to the prophet that they wrote down, and I am speaking it with authority, not my word, but Yah's word. That's prophecy. That's what I'm doing. And so we need to understand what is happening here. So I would like you to come with me to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Ezekiel, and we will look for chapter 22 in Ezekiel. And we will begin at verse 25. The word here says, there is a conspiracy of our prophets in our midst. Like a roaring lion tearing the prey, they have devoured life, they have taken wealth and precious matters, they have made many widows of her midst. Are you with me? The preachers today are telling you, send us this $5, send us this $10, and we will send you this blessed cloth. We will send you this oil. And they have made, the word says, many widows. Her priests have done violence to my teaching. How have they done violence to their teaching? Because they have ignored what the Torah said. They tell the people that the Shabbats have done away with, that the feast days are done away with, that you can worship Yah any which way you like. They have done violence to my teaching, said Yah, and they have profaned my set-apart matters. That's what the teachers are doing today, even as they did in Ezekiel time. They have not distinguished between the set apart and the profane. They don't know the difference between the seventh day and the first day. The seventh day is set apart for the set apart people. And the profane, nor have they made known the difference between the clean and the unclean. They still eat all kinds of food that are not supposed to be put in your stomach. And so they don't understand that's evil. So Yah is saying, weed out this evil. You know, often when we talk about evil, we think we're dealing with the murderers and the robbers. No, anything that Yah said that is a command and you do contrary to it, Yah said it's evil. You are an evil generation. We've got to understand that. And so verse 27 of the same chapter, 22 of Ezekiel, he said, her leaders in her midst are the wolves tearing the prey. Are you with me? The prey are the congregants. And the leaders are the wolves. These are the priests and the false teachers. To shed blood, to destroy life, and to get greedy gains. The gospel of prosperity that is being preached. And the prophets have coated them with whitewash, seeing a false vision and divining a lie for them, saying, thus said the Master Yahweh, and Yahweh had not spoken. They come and they tell you, often you hear them say, but I've had a word from the Yah. And Yah said, I did not speak to them, because what they say doesn't come true. And what I say to them, if I did say to them, it would be consistent with the word that I have printed, that I have sent. So how do you know? By their fruits you know them, by their own attitude, by the things they do. You will know who are false. So we are defining here what a prophet is, or what a false teacher is. Son of man, verse 18, the house of Israel has become dross to me. All of them are bronze. Interesting, isn't it? Bronze. As if he was speaking to bronze people. And tin and iron and lead in the midst of the furnace. They have become the dross of silver. Therefore, thus saith the Master Yahweh, because all of you have become dross, therefore, see, I am gathering you into the midst of Jerusalem, and they gather silver and bronze and iron and lead and tin into the midst of the furnace to blow fire on it, to melt it, so that I gather you in my displeasure and my wrath. I shall blow and melt you. Now, I can identify with this very much. He's talking about a furnace. And as one who served an indentured apprenticeship for 4 years at British Steel, I can identify with this in the way the open hearth furnace, produces, metal. And even the blast furnace, where you put all the metal in, the iron ore and the coke and the manganese, and eat that up to the upper critical point, and then you tap the melted metal, and we call that pig iron. And some of us are really pig iron in the way we behave and conduct ourselves. And so Yah said, I'm going to melt you because you're scrap. I want to turn you into something that is new. That's what he says he will do in here. So we've got to understand what is happening. Let's go now to verse 29. The people of the land have practiced oppression and committed robbery and have wronged the poor and needy, and they oppress the stranger without right ruling. And I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the breach before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, but I did not find one. Yes, that I sought to find a man who would recognize what is going on in the land, and if he could make a case and let the people know, and they would turn from their wicked way, I would save the whole land, but I could not find any, not one. And the question that must be asked, the place where you worship, the one who teaches you, how consistent is he with the word of Yah? Is his spoken theology the same as his lived religion? Is it? Therefore, I have poured out my displeasure on them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath, and I have put their way on their own head, declares the Master. I visited the churches, and I saw all the abominations that are going on. I listened to the preachers and how they have deviated from the word. And they have become weapons of fact destruction. They are decreed, but they are not decreed by Yah. And my people are listening to their voice. And I want a man, someone that I could send to my people and to warn them. But the word says here in Ezekiel that I could not find any. Now, we read earlier that one of the proofs of a prophet is when the prophet speaks, then if it comes through, then you know he's a prophet. Right? But what if what the prophet says, even though he's a false prophet, comes through? How do you determine? Because we read in Matthew 24 and verse 24, it says in the last day what they will do. They will give you signs and wonders. And they will perform miracles in front of your very eyes. And if you do not have that discerning quality, you will miss it. So come with me to the book of Deuteronomy, and we will dilate upon the chapter 13 to consolidate the point that I wish to make. That's Devarim, chapter 13. When there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer, dreams, and he shall give you a sign or wonder, and the sign of the wonder shall come true, or which he has spoken to you, saying, he's given you a dream, and he has prophesied. Then he says, let's go after other mighty ones which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of the prophets. He says, even if what he says to you, what he dreamed, comes through, and he takes you and leads you away from my word, leads you astray, do not listen to that teacher. Do not listen to that pastor. Do not listen to that elder. Do not listen to that prophet. Because he's saying, if what he is saying is inconsistent with my word, Isaiah 55 and verse 11 says, there is no light in him. But you don't know how to make the distinction. You will believe because he said it and it came through. He's a prophet. No. Verse 4. Walk after Yahweh your Elohim and fear him, and guard his command and obey his voice, and serve him and cling to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dream is put to death. You didn't hear me. Let me say that again another way. When a pastor misleads you, when a bishop comes to you and tell you something contrary to what the word is saying, telling you that the Sabbath is done away with, the feast days is done away with, and that you don't have to keep the Torah, you must not be Torah observant, the word said it's a capital offense. He's deserving of death. That's what the word here says. Walk after Yahweh. Verse 5. And that prophet or that dreamer of dream is put to death because he has spoken apostasy against Yahweh. You understand what apostasy is now? When somebody says, keep the first day as a Sabbath, and Yah says, remember the seventh day to keep it holy. Yah said, if he says different from that, he has apostatized. And he causes the people to apostatize. When he tells you that the feast days are done away with, he has apostatized. Are you with me? Don't listen to him, but listen to your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim and ransomed you for the house bondage, to make you stray from the way in which Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to walk. Thus you shall what? Purge the evil from among you. How do you purge that? You leave and get others to come with you. Purge the evil. What did I say the evil was? The evil is when you do or say anything contrary to the word. That's evil. It's not necessarily a murderer. All Adam did was Adam ate a fruit, which was against the command that Yah gave him, and it was evil. We've got to understand these things. Listen to verse 6. When your brother, the son of your mother, or the son of your daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or your friend who is as your own being, entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty one, which you have not known, neither you nor your father, of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near to you, as far off from you, from the end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with him. If it's your brother, if it's your sister, if it's your mother, your dad, do not agree with him and do not go. Take you away from the Sabbath and say, let's go over there and do the first day like they did during the time of Jeroboam. The word says, don't go with him. Don't go. Do not agree with him or listen to him, nor shall you ever pardon him, nor spare him, or conceal him. But you shall certainly kill him. We don't kill these days, but the word says you must shun the very appearance of evil. So what we're dealing with here is some of those who will tell you things and they will come to pass. And in that regard, you will think this man is telling the truth. But then in the next breath, he said, come over here. Let's worship this. Yeah, I said, don't go with him, even if it's your brother. And the point I want to drive home is this. In the last days, the word says, these prophets, these teachers, these bishops, they're going to do exciting works. You better come with me to Revelation 13. And we're going to read from verse 12. He says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth what? Great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven and earth in the sight of men. This is what they're going to do. And you're going to see that, and you think it's from Yah. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of these miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound of the sword and did live. Yah is saying it's one thing when the prophet prophesied and it comes through. But if he's leading you away contrary to worship another mighty one, another Elohim, don't go with him. Don't. And so it reminds me very much of 1 Samuel. You better come there so we look at that. 1 Samuel. We all know the experience with Saul and David. That as the house of David increased, the house of Saul decreased. You also remember that when Saul was anointed as king, he prophesied. What did I say prophesied? He spoke forth. He spoke intelligently, and he spoke the inspired word of Yah, and he did so with the authority of Yah. He was decreed to do so. It's okay if you're decreed and decreed, but if you're only decreed and not decreed, you're in trouble. So come with me to verse 6, 1 Samuel 28. And it says, and when Saul inquired of Yah, Yah answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by the prophets. Hear me, many of the ministers today are not on speaking terms with Yah. They're praying and they're preaching only on the strength of their degree, but not on their decree. And Saul, King Saul, was in the same position. He's king. And with that rank, he presumes that he can do anything. In fact, he burned offering and he was not supposed to. But now the relationship between he and the Creator is such that it's broken down, just like the relationship with Yah and some of his people today have broken down. And there is no one to mend the breach. So King Saul recognized the dilemma in which he is. And the word says, and when he inquired of Yah, Yah answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophet. He was not hearing a voice. The communication had been severed between earth and heaven as far as Saul was concerned. Then said Saul unto his servant, seek me a woman that had familiar spirit. Go and find me an Obia woman. That's what he said. That's why when these men who are decreed and not decreed, they don't get a message. They come up with things and tell you that Yah has told them, but Yah said, I did not speak with them. But they will perform miracles, and you will believe, even though they are false. That's what we've got to guard against. And the word says, go and find me a woman. This is the request of King Saul, that hath familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And the servant said to him, behold, there is a woman that hath the familiar spirit in Endor, the witch of Endor. And Saul disguised himself. Of course, he's no longer transparent. He disguised himself and put on other raiment and went, and two men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine, unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me up whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul had done, how he had cut off those that have familiar spirit. Saul was against this at one time. But now, the very thing that he abhorred, he's now seeking. And the wizards out of the land, wherefore then layest thou a snare? He abandoned the wizards out of the land. That's what he did. And he caused them to die. And Saul swore to her by Yahweh, saying, as Yah liveth, there shall be no punishment. Just bring up Samuel. My question to you is, did this woman bring up Samuel? They saw something, and Samuel did come up. But was this woman of Endor, was she acting for Yah? Was she speaking for Yah? So what Deuteronomy 13 is saying, these things are going to happen in the end time to deceive you, because you do not know what a prophet is. If the person speak contrary to the word of Yah, there is no light in them. They're not a prophet. They do not speak for Yah. But here we see it in the word. So we have a problem. We do have a problem. We do have a problem. Oh, yes. Because the churches have succumbed to this situation where men just stand on the pulpits and they carry on and push people down, and another one catches them and cry out that they're healed. And the congregants, they're saying, how amazing it is. But you don't know. Many of these guys are psychologists. Are you with me? They have a congregation of perhaps 10,000, and they cry out and say something like, oh, somebody out there is not feeling very well. In a congregation of 10,000, of course, there is somebody here with pain who's experiencing sickness. And you then think it's a great moment. It's a Solomon moment. Wise. Anybody can say that, isn't it? And so, on the strength of that, they send you a so-called blessed cloth, and you send money to them. And you see that happening. And they call it the gospel of prosperity. The word says, seek ye first. What? The kingdom and all is righteousness, and all that you seek is already in the kingdom. Don't be deceived. Come with me to Shemot, chapter 7, that's Exodus. And we will read verse 11 on. The word says, then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in the manner with the enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. They did exactly what Moses did. These are the things that are going to happen in the last day. These are false prophets, but they did what Moses did. So when you see this in your church and you see this elsewhere, you are so wide-eyed. You believe that what they are doing is from Yah. No. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them. And Yah said, and Paul picks up that theme in 2 Timothy 3:8. In fact, Paul named them. Paul said, now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt mind reprobate concerning the faith. That's what we have today. Weapons of facts destruction. They redact the word and teach that to the congregants, and in their ignorance, they believe. Now, some of these people, they will say, well, I have been at this church for several years, and I love my pastor. He's a good man. Deuteronomy said, even if he's your brother, don't go with him. Don't let him deceive you. The word, Yah says, I esteem my word more than I do my name. So when you reject the word, who is the word? You're rejecting who? Yeshua, because Yeshua is the word, and the word came and dwelt among us. So when you reject the word, how then can you be sanctified according to John 17:17? Sanctify them by thy word is truth. In fact, how can you be sanctified when he can't even justify you? And so we have a problem. And the problem is, in the last days, the nowadays, many of these people on TV and elsewhere in your churches, they will perform miracles, even healing. And you will believe that it's from Yah. But their focus is on another Yah. So be careful. So at this time, I want you to join me in the book of Malachi. That's First Kings. First Kings. And we'll look at verse 16 and tie this into the issue of the false prophet, because our subject is what? Weapons of facts destruction. Chapter 16, and we will look at verse 34. It says, in his days, Heel of Bethel built Jericho. I say Jericho because there was no J. And my Bible here, I'm reading from the scriptures. It says Jericho. He did what? What did he do? In his days, the days of Heel, from Bethel, built Jericho. He laid its foundation at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and at the cost of his youngest son, Serub. He set up its gates according to the word of Yahweh, which he had spoken through Yahusha, son of Nun. Yah had told Joshua that he should prophesy, right? And tell the people that nobody should rebuild the city of Jericho. Don't do it. So what was Joshua doing? Joshua was prophesying with authority the word that was given to him by Yah. Let's go and pick it up in Yahushua. That's Joshua chapter 6, and let's read verse 26. And Yehoshua warned them at that time, saying, cursed is the man before Yahweh who rises up and builds the city, Jericho. He lays its foundation with his firstborn, and with his youngest he sets up its gates. So Joshua, after they conquered Jericho, prophesied that whoever it is that builds Jericho again is going to do so at the cost of two sons. We just read that Heel from Bethel built Jericho and he lost two sons. The prophecy was true. Was Joshua a prophet? Yes, he was. Not only did he foretell, but he forth the word, and it came to pass. That's how you know. By their fruits you know them. So at this time, we must join the Spirit in chapter 17 of Malachi. And it says, and Eliyahu the Tishbite, that's Elijah, of the inhabitants of Gilead, and said to Ahab was king, of as Yahweh Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be no dew or rain these years except at my word. Now understand what is going on here. It needs some explanation. Because sometimes we just read into the word and we miss the essence of what Yah is giving us through the message. He'll build the city. He was not supposed to do that because there was a curse on it. But he built it. Now, last week I spoke, and I want to remind you what I said. I said that Baal worship was not merely having an image. Because that's too obvious. Satan is more of a tactician than that. But the whole idea is that Baal is one who rides upon the clouds, and he will send rain to the people so their flock could be raised, better, and their harvest, their crops would do better in the harvest. So rain. Baal is going to send rain. That's the promise that Baal sends out to the people. And we are told that between Ahab and his wife, they had 850 of them. Ahab had 450, and his wife had 400 that sat at the table. And there is only one man, Elijah. The notion of that is no different from today. You're going to have to search pretty studiously to find a true preacher. One who doesn't add to the word and one who doesn't take of the word, because Revelation chapter 22 gives us that admonition. Don't add and don't take away. Speak and prophesy with the authority that you receive the word from the prophets. Because all that the prophets spoke, they spoke of Yeshua. That's what he said. And when he came in Luke chapter 16 and verse 16, he made it clear the laws and the prophets were preached up until John, but now the kingdom. And we are kingdom bound, so we must understand these things. So Baal promises the people that there's going to be rain. And so all the people listened to Baal because it was an economic promise. As we live here in America and elsewhere, some of you in Britain and elsewhere, the whole world is about economics. People are talking about big deals, big contracts. Whether you are in the EU or somewhere else, we want a contract. That's what we want. If you're a sportsman, you want a contract. It's economics. Everybody is offering you something. Baal did that. And Baal had 850 salesmen selling his dividends. And Yah had Elijah. So what do you do when the majority of people are going with Baal? And Elijah don't even have a congregation. The other prophets, we are told, Obadiah has had to hide them in caves. And some of our churches have become like caves where the ministers are hiding. So what did Elijah do? Elijah went and said, Baal promised rain, but I say, Yah said, there is no going to be any rain. Let's see whether Baal or Yah is telling the truth. Baal says there's going to be rain, and Baal has 850 prophets telling us that. Who should we believe? You believe that in a democracy, but not in a kingdom. Because the kingdom is not based on democracy, it's based on the word of Yah, and the word of Yah, the king word is law. That's what happened. Now, we're made to understand this is what happened. Elijah met Heel at Ahab's house, or he met Ahab at Heel's house, I should say. Because Heel is mourning his son's death. So Ahab mockingly said to Elijah, how is it that the prophecy of Joshua has come true, but the prophecy of Moses has not come true, and Moses is greater than Joshua? Moses had prophesied there's going to be no rain, but that was a long time ago. So Elijah here was speaking with the authority of the word that Moses spoke. So when he said there was no rain, he was speaking a prophecy. Let's read. And Eliyahu, the Tishbite of the inhabitants of Gilead, said to Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael lives, before whom I stand, there shall be no dew or rain these years except at my word. You notice here, it doesn't tell you the duration of the famine, here, but in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, he tells you that it was 3.5 years. Because Yeshua himself, remember, he said, that there was a famine in Israel, and Elijah did not go to any of the people and did not heal any of them except Naaman. And that lasted for 3.5 years. So, and the word of Yah came to him, saying, go away from here and turn eastward and hide by the Wadi Kerith, which flows into the Yarden. And it shall be that you shall drink from the stream, and I shall command the ravens to feed you there. And he went and did according to the word of Yah, for he went and dwelt by the Wadi Kerith, which flows into the Yarden, that's the river Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the stream. Yah said, don't worry what you're going to eat. I can instruct ravens to feed you. Baal promised prosperity, as the churches are promising people prosperity. All you have to do is just send this seed money, and we will make sure that you have a harvest. And you don't even stop to think that this is not from Yah. You watch them on TV pushing each other down. The word says in Deuteronomy, as we read earlier, they have made widows of many people. Did you not read? So this matter offended Elijah. So come with me to chapter 18. Chapter 18. And it came to be in the 3rd year. Well, that's chapter 2 Kings. I want 1 Kings, sorry. Chapter 18. And after many days it came to be that the word of Yahweh came to Eliyahu in the 3rd year, saying, go present yourself to Ahab, and I give rain on the earth. Now, when you serve other gods, other mighty ones, you'll die for hunger. For 3.5 years, Baal was promising prosperity, like some of the churches that are promising prosperity. Just send us this seed money, and we will send you blessing. And you're still sick. So after 3.5 years, Yah said to Elijah, go and show yourself to King Ahab. The earth is as dry as the hills of Bilboa. No rain has been for 3.5 years. So Baal has failed. Go and show yourself. Thereupon, Eliyahu went to present himself to Ahab, and the scarcity of food in Shemiran, that's Samaria, was severe. It was very severe. And Ahab had called Obadiah, who was over his house. Obadiah is a prophet. But he was afraid. He's working for Ahab. And he's hiding the prophets in caves. And perhaps you're asking the same question. Where are these ministers? Where are these bishops or these priests that should be telling the word to the people, and they should be speaking it with the authority of the word? Where are they? Why aren't they showing themselves to the Ahabs of this world? Why? They are decreed, but they're not decreed. That's why. As Elijah was decreed, go and show yourself. A command. Go and show yourself. Now, you remember who Ahab was married to. Ahab is married to Jezebel. We call her Jezebel. And we pick her up in Revelation chapter 2, that she's one of the teachers in the church, along with Balaam. You didn't hear me. I said both Jezebel and Balaam are teaching in the church. The word of Yah says that. So I speak this openly, and I speak with the authority of the word, because that's what the word says. I'm not adding to, and I'm not taking away. So how do you know that the church you're in is not practicing this promise of Baal? If your church is focused on only money, you know it's Balaam, isn't it? And if it's Jezebel, you know what she's teaching. And so Yeshua said you must avoid that. Avoid that. And so Elijah said, all right, you have 850, and it's just me. And he cried out, it's only me. Now, when Elijah told Obadiah, go and tell your master, go and tell your employer that I'm in town, because he's been looking for me for 3.5 years. But I kept myself away because Yah had told me to not appear until now. Obadiah was afraid. Why is he afraid? Because he's working for the state. And those ministers who are being paid by the states, they have the same problem, because they're all 501 people. And they get their tax exempt, and they don't want to say anything that the state don't want them to say. But Elijah insisted, go and tell your master, go and tell your employer, go and tell your conference, I'm in town. Well, you know, the conference president might say such and such. Go and tell your president that I'm in town. That's what Elijah said. And so Elijah decided that he would summon them, these Baal prophets, to Mount Carmel. It's going to be high noon at Carmel. Oh, yes. And the word here says in chapter 18 of Malachim, first Malachim, in verse 21, and Eliyahu came to all the people, that's Israel, and said, how long would you keep open between the opinions? If Yahweh is Elohim, follow him, and if Baal, follow him. But the people answered him not a word. You know, often you talk to people, you write to them, and they don't even respond, not a word. You know that they're having conversation with Baal. Are you with me? Now let them give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but set no fire, and I prepare the other bull, and shall lay it on the wood, but set no fire. We're going to tell today, says Elijah, who really is the mighty one in Israel. Is it Baal? You've already seen that he promised rain, and in 3.5 years, not even a drop of rain. Not one. But I'm going to invoke the name of Yahweh today in your eye and see if there be rain. What Elijah is saying. And so the people were quite sanguine, hopeful in all of this. And of course, the word says that, so they took the bull, verse 26, which was given them, and prepared it, and called, on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, "How Baal, answer us." Until noon, saying, "Who Baal, answer us." But there was no voice and no answered. No one answered, and they leaped about the slaughter place. Have you ever been to those churches where people just leap about feverishly and aimlessly, trying to convince you that something is happening? It happened here. Ahab tried it before them. And it came to be at noon that Eliyahu taunted them and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a mighty one. He is meditating," or he is, it's interesting. It's like he's making reference to the Eastern religion, right? He's meditating, because some of these religions are about meditation, and when you find nirvana, then you have reached the heights. Oh, he's meditating. He's doing yoga. Are you with me? Because he's not hearing you. Wake him up. He's asleep. He that keepeth Israel neither slumber nor sleep. But Baal is asleep. 3.5 years you've been calling him and no rain? What happened to that insurance policy he promised you? And they cried aloud, says verse 28, and cut themselves. What does the word say in Leviticus 19 and verse 28? Don't put any mark, any tattoo on you. Don't do that. But they cut themselves according to their ruling with knives and spears until the blood gushed out of them. Sometimes I see people from, our continent, and they say, this is a tribal mark. And people say, this is our custom. Yeah, I said, don't do that. Who are you going to believe? The customs of the continent or the word of Yah? And it came to be when midday was past that they prophesied until the time of bringing the evening offering. This is at 3 o'clock. But there was no voice and no one answered. Now, have you ever tried speaking to a rock? Because all rocks do each day, they dream about nothing. You ask them a question, they do not answer. That's Baal. He has nothing to say. Are you with me? Then Eliyahu said to all the people, "Come closer to me." And all the people came closer to him, and he repaired the slaughter place of Yahweh that was broken down. And Eliyahu took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Yahweh had come, saying, "Yisrael is your name." What? Yisrael is your name. And with the stones he built a slaughtering place in the name of Yahweh, and he made a trench around the slaughter place, large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed, and he arranged the wood and cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood and said, "Fill 4 jars of water and pour it in." Now, at a time when there's no water, seemingly Elijah here is just throwing water around. Why? Because he has confidence in the one whom he serves. Then he said, do it a second time, and they did it a second time. And he said, do it a third time, and they did it the third time. Do one for Yah, and one for his son, and one for the rock. Do it 3 times. And the water flowed around the slaughter place, and he filled the trench with water too. And it came to be at the time of bringing the evening offering that Eliyahu, the prophet, came near and said, Yahweh Elohim of Abraham, Yishtak, and Israel, let it be known today you are Elohim of Israel, and I your servant, and have done all these matters by your word. Now, they have, by way of chanting and incantation, what have they done? Been chanting Baal's name. What's the difference here? Elijah is about to invoke the authority of the one who carries the name Yahweh. Difference. Answer me, verse 37, O Yahweh, answer me, and let this people know that you are Yahweh Elohim, and you shall turn their hearts back to you again. Then the fire of Yahweh fell and consumed the ascending offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And all the people saw and fell at their, what? On their faces. That's worship. And said, Yahweh, he is Elohim. Yahweh is our Elohim. And Eliyahu said to them, seize the prophets. Seize what? Seize the ministers, the false ministers, the bishops, the priests. Seize them. All of them who serve Baal. Do not let one of them escape. So they seized them, and Eliyahu brought them down to the Wadi Kishon and slew them there, to lead Yah's people astray. Contrary to his revealed word, the word here said it's a capital offense to all of the false prophets. And you people, listen to Yah's word through his prophet. There was only one against 850, but who proved right? Elijah. And Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Eliyahu went up to the top of Carmel, and he bowed down on the ground and put his face between his knees, and said to his servant, go up, please look closely towards the sea. So he went up and looked in closely and said, not a speck. And 7 times he said, go again. And it came to be the 7th time that he said, see, a little cloud, as small as a man's hand, is coming out of the sea. And he said, go up, say to Ahab, itch up and go down before the rain stops you. The reality is that it rained and it rained and it rained, because Yah now sends rain. So it's clear. It's clear that for 3.5 years, Baal was impotent. And Yah now brings rain. But the word says, when Ahab reported this to Jezebel, what did Jezebel want to do? To kill Elijah. To kill Elijah. So what's my point in all this? It's all about worship, isn't it? So join me in John chapter 4. John chapter 4? You know this story very well, but let me close on this. John chapter 4. This is a woman of Samaria, and you know it very well, is that she came to the well, Jacob's well, to draw water. And there she met the Master, the Messiah, who asked her for water. And she inquired as to why he, being a Jew, would ask a Samaritan for water, because the two don't have any dealings. But if only she knew that he here is indeed the good Samaritan. He made himself a Samaritan to meet a Samaritan. And you said, how could that be? He's not is Samaritan. Oh, yes, the word says there is only one good. And that's Yeshua. So if there is only one that is good, and there is a good Samaritan, it has to be him. So when you read the story of the Good Samaritan, you're not reading something abstract. He's saying, I'll be a Jamaican to you if you obey me. I'll be a Trinidadian, a Guyanan. If you're from Guyana, I'll be that to you. You're British, I'll be that. I'll meet you where you're at. So, to pique the conversation, he said, where is your husband? Call him. And the woman said, I have no husband. What's the prophet now? Because Moses in chapter 18 and verse 15 had made it known that a prophet was going to be raised up like unto him. And when he come, you should hear him. So he now looks at her and says, you spoke well when she said she didn't have a husband. She said, you've had 5 husbands, and the one you're living with now is not yours. She responded and said, well, you speak as a prophet. I perceive you're a prophet, sir. He's more than a prophet. She asked him the question, are you greater than Jacob? Huh? Are you greater than Jacob? He's greater than all of them. Are you with me? What she didn't know, that everything that transpired at Mount Sinai and through the wilderness was Yeshua. Yeshua gave the commandment. He wrote them. The well he gave to Jacob. Are you with me? Everything from Genesis all the way to from this man's sin, it's Yeshua. So any voice that you hear is Yeshua representing the Father. He has been like a father unto us, but he's not the Father. But what do you mean? You hear people say, well, I heard from the Father. Really? Really? How could you hear? And when he speaks the word, and the word is Yeshua. You better come with me in John 5:37. Let me just cap that for you and put that to rest. Yohanan 5:37 said, and the Father who sent me, what? He bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his form, and you do not have his word staying in you, because you do not believe him whom he sent. You have never heard the Father's voice, neither have you seen his form. Everything that he said, I said it to you. No man cometh to the Father except they come through me. And you said you come. This is what Yeshua said. No man cometh to the Father except they come through him, the Son. But you have a group of people today who said they accept the Father, but they reject the Son. John says, 1 John that is, that what kind of people, he tells us what kind of people these are, isn't it? Well, let's go there. 1 Yohanan chapter 4. Beloved ones, do not believe what? Every spirit, but prove the spirits whether they are of Elohim, because many false prophets, how many? Many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the spirit of Elohim. Every spirit that confesses that Yahweh Messiah, Yeshua Messiah, has come into the flesh is of Elohim. And every spirit that does not confess that Yahweh Messiah has come in the flesh is not of Elohim. And this is the spirit of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming, and now it's already in the world. Now, John is saying the anti-Messiah spirit, attitudinal, has been in the world for almost 2,000 years. in this time. But it will culminate into a person, ultimately at the end of time. The Antichrist. The attitude and the thinking already exist. And it's in the church. And in synagogues. It's there. So the woman, as we should, was concerned. She says, sir, you people, you worship in Jerusalem, and we worship in Samaria up in the hills. Tell me, where should we worship? Yeshua said, woman, the time is coming. In fact, the time is now when the true worshipers, he qualifies it, will worship me how? In spirit and in truth. What is he saying? The word is true. So if the word doesn't tell you how you should worship, or if you're not following what the word says, then you're practicing evil. The word says, keep my Sabbaths, all of them. The word says, keep my Passover, you give him Easter. Keep my feast, you give him Christmas. Are you with me? You are evil. That's what the word says. So the woman wants to know, he said, do it in spirit and in truth. So in order to worship, do it the way the word says. That's true. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. A lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That's the word. It's true. Yeshua in, John 14 and around about 6, he says, I am the what? The way, the truth, and the life. If you want the way, come through me. You want truth? It's through me. You want life? It's through me. So we know the word. Anytime you're going to worship, the word will instruct you how to do it. Now the spirit. How do you know? Well, look at it this way. Think of it this way, that the commandment said, thou shalt not commit adultery. Because the word said that. So if you stay away and not commit adultery, you are worshiping by way of the word in truth. Because you got to worship him in spirit and in truth. That's true. The word says don't do it, so you don't do it. But that's not enough. Because Yeshua says, you have heard it said that you should not commit adultery. But if you should look at a woman and lust after her, you have already committed adultery in your mind. That's the spirit. So when you worship in spirit, you must make sure you do not desire the things that you abstain from. Do not desire fornication or adultery, stealing, robbing, That's in your mind, even though you're not doing that physically, you're doing it in your mind and you're evil. That's what it means when it says, worship me in spirit and in truth. Many of us who come to worship on the Sabbath, but our minds are in the streets. Our minds are in the marketplace. You have been here physically, but your mind is elsewhere. You must do it in the spirit also. We've got to understand that. And so we must speak the word, the inspired word, with authority. Notice, because some of us think that, oh, well, I don't serve Baal, and I don't have any image. But don't forget in Exodus chapter 32 and verse 8, when they built the golden calf, they said, this is Yahweh who brought you from Egypt. So many of the churches have their idols in there and are calling on the name of Yah, and you think it's all right. No, we've got to be very, very careful that we don't fall foul to the false teachers. And we are told in 1 Timothy 4 that in the last days, the Ruach speak expressly that many will leave the faith. They have not left the church, they've left the faith. The church has left the faith. Listening to what? All kind of different seducing spirits. And doing things that denominations are telling them to do while ignoring the word. So my admonition and encouragement for you today is avoid those weapons of facts destruction. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.